Alex O'Connor is a very intelligent and well put together individual. Of course, him and I do disagree because he's an agnostic who isn't inclined to believe in the God of the Bible, and I am a Bible-believing Christian. So what I want to do today is actually comment on a video that he made where he made arguments against God based on the idea that the world makes more sense from an atheistic worldview than a theistic worldview. I'll be using a video where he made a speech at Oxford University, and then I'll be answering 2 points that he made. Enjoy the video.
What would you expect to see if God existed and all of this was being supervised? What would you expect the world to look like? How would you expect life to have evolved? And if we assume the alternative hypothesis, that is atheism, materialism, that is that the world we find ourselves in is just an amoral arena of accidentally existing organisms competing in an endless struggle for survival, what would we expect to find? And what do we find? A system of natural selection which explains the origin of species on planet Earth.
Okay, so when he says that natural selection explains the origin of species on Earth, I don't really see what he means by that. Because natural selection is when there's a group of animals in a certain place, and the animals that have the qualities in that area to survive, they survive, and then the ones that don't, they die off. So it doesn't really explain the origin of species, because instead of being an increase in information like evolution is, natural selection is kind of a decrease in information, because you're getting rid of certain species rather than developing some species into other species. Just wanted to say that quickly.
And what do we find? A system of natural selection which explains the origin of species on planet Earth. It does not just cause or bring about, but relies upon suffering and death. Survival of the fittest is the same thing as the death and destruction of the unfit. 99% plus of all of the species, let alone animals, that have ever inhabited this planet have been brutally wiped from existence. And for what? For our development? It seems that unimaginable, indescribable, and seemingly inexplicable suffering is embedded into the very mechanism by which I'm told God decided to create human beings. I'm not saying this can't be explained on theism. Of course I can't say that. You could say that this is all part of some grand plan of Jobian proportion in its unintelligibility. Maybe there's some kind of compensation in the afterlife. Maybe dogs do go to heaven after all, sure. I'm just asking you what you would actually expect to be the case. I think that we wouldn't expect to see anything like what I've just described if we assume that there is a benevolent invigilator overseeing the process. However, if we assume atheism, not only do we come to explain this phenomenon, but in my view, we also come to expect it.
So Mr. Connor makes the point that atheism better explains the world we live in today, because the whole of nature uses the law of survival of the fittest, which is where whoever, all the animals fight, kill each other, and then whoever is the fittest, obviously, of them survives and comes out on top. But then if God was the one that made the world, then surely not everybody would be killing each other, because there's a benevolent God that put everything in place. Now, I can understand where he's coming from, but this idea is actually based on a misunderstanding of who God is and how he made the world. You see, the biblical teaching is that God made a perfect world where nobody died and all nature worked together in harmony to stay alive. But then once humans sinned and we separated ourselves from God, the whole creation was separated from God. So now we live in a fallen world where the animals have to kill each other to survive instead of working together to survive. So no, evolution and survival of the fittest isn't the system that God put in place, but it's because of sin that the world has fallen, and hence we have this whole survival of the fittest, animals killing each other system inside of nature. God never intended the world to be this way, but what he does promise is that if we come back to him, then he can bring us back to a perfect world where nobody dies and we all live in harmony with each other and with him.